Reducing suffering is a good thing. As simple as it sounds, it feels like one of the few ideas that feels rock solid and difficult to criticize. But as nice of a thought as this is, it feels very hard to know where to best direct my actions to properly reflect this. Averting deaths, improving quality of life are kind of the two directions, I think, the two categories for how to reduce suffering. But in terms of what to actually do, it's very hard to know. Many of us are fully aware of how tragic the death of a single person is. So sometimes when we read the stats of, 13,300 children under 5 died every day in 2024, these are numbers that are basically impossible to comprehend. And it makes sense why our brains have such tunnel vision when we hear those things, timesing the amount of despair we feel from losing a single person, timesing it by 13,300 that's a impossible thing to comprehend. So it makes sense why we have this narrow view. I think a consequence of that, though, is that sometimes we put these numbers and this level of tragedy to the back of our minds because, we've got a lot to deal with in our own lives. We've got things that demand our energy and attention. Like, I really don't want to understate how difficult it is to keep just ourselves afloat. That's hard enough. I think there is merit, though, in swinging the pendulum a little bit the other way and keeping the people behind the statistics a little bit more towards the forefront of our minds. And this is not to make us feel more upset and guilty. I think it can come off that way, but I think we should use it more as a way to inspire us to mitigate this suffering and use it as fuel. So naturally, the next question is, how do we choose what to focus on? And that's a really important question to get right before we start to act. A few years ago, I came across this doctor in Australia called Dr. Henry Howard. He's someone who did something called a workathon. Essentially, he did his day job. He worked as a doctor for the full year, and he ended up donating about 50% of his income to particular charities that had good evidence of their effectiveness. Giving half your income for a year is obviously a big sacrifice and not something that is going to be widely adopted practically. And I don't think that was Dr. Howard's goal, but I think it does raise the point of keeping things in perspective. And a good way to do that is using the How Rich Am I calculator on the Life You Can Save website. And that compares your annual income to the rest of the world. Say your income is 60K per year, and that puts you richer than 94% of the world. I think it's easy to feel guilty about this, but I think that's not the important part. I think a better way to look at it is recognizing the potential for impact one can have, knowing that they're on the wealthier side of things. The next question is, how do we know what to donate to? And the world is complex, and there's problems that are infinitely complex as well. This is not something that I'm seeking to discount, and it's easy to focus on the wrong thing, and we can always cause more harm than we intend to, even with good intentions. There are a surprising number of problems that actually do have proven and surprisingly straightforward solutions that can be measured and monitored, with the main barrier often being funding. Working out which charity to give to, though, is quite hard, and it's best to leave it to the experts. GiveWell is a website that basically evaluates the effectiveness of charities in quite a rigorous way to try find what they call low-hanging fruit are. One example is the Against Malaria Foundation, who are very effective as a charity. One of the best ways to reduce malaria transmission rates is with insecticide bed nets, and that's the main focus for AMF. GiveWell estimates that for every $5,500 given, a life can be saved, and I think reading this number really hits home for me how much power we have in having a big impact on things that are a daily tragedy that isn't always discussed in the media. In terms of how much to give, it's a really hard one to be too prescriptive of, because people's situations vary so much, and I know circumstances quickly change. So even the lucky ones who have quite stable lives and necessities met, a financial safety net is still very important as well. So I think prescribing a specific amount to give is perhaps a little bit too general, but I do want to give a portion of my income, and I'd encourage anyone watching with the means and in a solid sort of situation to consider doing the same. So we'll do the Against Malaria Foundation today. Let's do $120 per week and then just see how we go from there. But we'll be looking at other charities sort of in the background to see if there's anything else we can support. I quite liked Dr. Howard's approach of just going quite generally and and looking through what's out there. So yeah, let's start with that. Encourage you to do the same. But regardless, I'll see you in the next video.